think you are doing to her?
Stay out of this, Adrian. This does not concern you.
My stepmother's hand connected with my face, and the sting brought tears to my eyes. "Sign these papers or sleep on the streets," she screamed, her perfectly manicured nails digging into my shoulder. She wanted everything: my father's company, his money, his entire legacy. My hand was shaking as I reached for the pen, ready to give up everything just to escape this nightmare. That's when the front door burst open with a sound like thunder. A man I'd never seen before in my life walked in like he owned the place. His eyes locked on mine and said words that stopped my heart. "Touch my wife again, and you'll regret it." I'm Nora, and what I'm about to tell you sounds like something out of a movie, but I promise you, every single word of this is true. Before we dive into this insane story, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because you're not going to believe the twists that are coming. If you've ever felt betrayed by the people who were supposed to love you, drop a comment below. Trust me, you're going to want to hear how this all played out. So let me take you back to where it all began. 2 weeks before that moment when my entire world turned upside down. The day my father died, something inside me died too. He was only 58 years old, healthy, active, always smiling. Then suddenly he was gone. The doctors said it was a heart attack, sudden and unexpected. But I knew my father. He took care of himself. He had just gotten a clean bill of health 3 months earlier. Something felt wrong, but I was drowning in grief, unable to think clearly. My stepmother Helen had married my father 5 years ago, 3 years after my mother passed away from cancer. At first, I thought she was kind. She smiled a lot, cooked his favorite meals, and even tried to bond with me. Her daughter Vanessa, who was 2 years older than me, seemed friendly enough. They moved into our family home, and life went on. But looking back now, I realize I never really knew them at all. The will reading happened exactly 2 weeks after the funeral. I sat in my father's study, the same room where he used to help me with homework, where we'd talk about my dreams of becoming an architect. The family lawyer, Mr. Harrison, sat behind the desk with a thick envelope in his hands. Helen sat on the leather couch, Vanessa beside her, both dressed in designer clothes. Even in mourning, they looked like they'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Mr. Harrison opened the envelope and began to read. I barely heard the first part, legal language that made my head spin. Then he got to the important section, and his words cut through my fog of grief like a knife. I leave my entire estate, including Bennett Construction Company, all properties, investments, and personal accounts, totaling approximately $50 million, to my beloved daughter, Nora Marie Bennett. The silence that followed was deafening. I looked up, shocked. $50 million? I knew my father's company was successful, but I had no idea. Helen's face had gone completely white. Her hands gripped the armrest of the couch so hard her knuckles turned pale. Vanessa's mouth hung open in disbelief. "There must be a mistake," Helen said, her voice tight and controlled. "What about me? What about Vanessa? We're his family, too." Mr. Harrison adjusted his glasses and continued reading. "To my wife Helen, I leave the sum of $100,000 and wish her well. To my stepdaughter Vanessa, I leave $50,000 for her future." He looked up at them. "That's everything, Mrs. Bennett. The will is clear and legally binding." I couldn't process what was happening. Helen stood up slowly, and for just a second, I saw something flash across her face. Pure, undiluted rage. But then she smiled, that same sweet smile I'd seen for 5 years. "Of course," she said softly. "Your father knew what he was doing. You deserve it, darling. You were his whole world. I should have known right then. I should have seen the lie in her eyes. That night, everything changed. I was in my room, still trying to understand that I was now responsible for a $50 million company, when Helen walked in without knocking. Vanessa followed her, closing the door behind them. The sweet expressions were gone. Helen's face was hard, her eyes cold as ice. "You stupid, ungrateful little girl," she said, her voice low and venomous. "Do you really think you deserve any of this? Your father was a fool, and so are you." I stepped back, shocked by the venom in her voice. "What are you talking about?" Vanessa laughed, a cruel sound I'd never heard from her before. "Oh, this is precious. She really has no idea. Nora, we never liked you, not for one single day. We pretended because we thought we'd get the money. 5 years of playing nice, completely wasted." Helen moved closer, and I backed up until I hit the wall. "Here's what's going to happen," she said. "You're going to sign over everything to me. The company, the houses, all of it. You'll keep a small trust fund, enough to live on quietly somewhere far away from here, and you'll do it willingly." "No," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "That's not what my father wanted. He left it to me." Helen's smile was terrifying. "Then I guess we'll have to convince you." Before I could react, Vanessa grabbed my phone from the nightstand. Helen pulled my laptop from my desk. "You won't be needing these," Helen said. "In fact, you won't be needing to leave this room until you see things our way." They walked out, and I heard the lock click. I ran to the door, pulling at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. I screamed for help, but no one came. The house was large, and my room was on the 3rd floor. Even if the servants heard me, would they help? Helen paid their salaries now. I was completely alone. The first day wasn't so bad. I thought surely someone would realize what was happening. Mr. Harrison would call. The company would need me. Someone would notice I was missing. But as the hours dragged on and no one came, reality set in. No one knew I was locked in here. To the outside world, I was just a grieving daughter who needed time alone. The second day, Helen came back with papers and a pen. "Sign these," she said, throwing them on my bed. "Transfer of ownership documents. Sign them and you can leave. Refuse and you'll stay here until you starve or see sense. Your choice." I threw the papers at her. "I'll never sign them." My father trusted me with his legacy. I won't betray that. She slapped me then, hard enough that my ears rang. "You'll change your mind," she said calmly. "Everyone has a breaking point." By the 3rd day, I was weak from hunger and thirst. They'd given me water but no food. My room felt like a prison, and panic was setting in. What if no one ever found me? What if they really would let me die here? I paced the room, trying to think of a way out, but the windows were too high to jump from, and the door was solid wood. On the 4th day, Helen returned with Vanessa. This time Helen wasn't playing games. She grabbed my hair and yanked my head back. "Listen to me very carefully," she hissed. "I didn't spend 5 years married to your boring father to walk away with nothing. You're going to sign these papers. If you don't, we'll make sure everyone thinks you went crazy with grief. We'll have you committed to a psychiatric facility. Do you understand me?" Vanessa held up her phone. "We've already got the servants ready to testify that you've been acting erratic. They'll say whatever we pay them to say. Who's going to believe you?" I felt my resistance crumbling. I was trapped, weak, scared, and completely alone. Maybe they were right. Maybe I should just sign and get out of here alive. What did I know about running a company anyway? I was only 23 years old. Helen pushed the papers into my hands and pressed a pen against my palm. "Sign. Now." My hand was shaking as I put the pen to paper. I thought about my father, about how disappointed he would be. But what choice did I have? The pen touched the paper, ink beginning to form the first letter of my name, when suddenly, bang! The sound of the front door slamming open echoed through the entire house. Heavy footsteps pounded up the stairs, fast and purposeful. Helen's head snapped toward my bedroom door. "What on earth?" The footsteps reached my floor. There was a moment of silence, then a voice, deep, commanding, and absolutely furious. "Where is she?" More footsteps, someone running, then a crash as something heavy hit wood. My bedroom door shook in its frame. Helen stumbled backward, her face pale. Another crash, and the doorframe splintered. One more hit, and the door flew open, the lock broken. A man stood in the doorway, and I'd never seen him before in my life. He was tall, maybe in his mid-30s, wearing an expensive gray suit that probably cost more than my car. His dark hair was slightly messy, like he'd been running his hands through it, and his eyes, sharp and intelligent, scanned the room before landing on me. For a moment, something flickered in his expression. Relief? Recognition? I couldn't tell. Helen found her voice, shrill and panicked. "Who are you? How dare you break into my house? I'm calling the police." The man didn't even look at her. He walked straight to me, and I pressed myself against the wall, terrified and confused. He stopped a few feet away, his voice gentler now. "Nora, it's okay. I'm here." "I don't know you," I whispered, my voice hoarse from days of crying and screaming. "I know," he said softly. Then he turned to Helen, and his expression went ice cold. "I'm her husband, Adrian Cole, and if you ever touch her again, I will destroy you." The room went completely silent. My brain couldn't process what he'd just said. Husband? That was impossible. I'd never seen this man in my entire life. I'd never been married. This had to be some kind of mistake or a hallucination from hunger. Helen recovered first, her voice sharp. "That's ridiculous. Nora isn't married. This is fraud. Vanessa, call the police right now." Adrian reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. He handed it to Helen, his movements calm and controlled. "Marriage certificate, dated 3 months ago, signed by both of us and a judge, completely legal and binding." I stared at him, my mind reeling. 3 months ago? That was impossible. I would remember getting married. Helen snatched the folder and opened it, her eyes scanning the documents. I saw the color drain from her face even further. "This is fake," she said, but her voice wavered. "It has to be." Adrian pulled out his phone and held it up. On the screen was a photo, and my knees nearly gave out. It was me. Definitely me. Standing next to this man, both of us dressed formally, signing papers at what looked like a courthouse. I was smiling in the photo, but I had absolutely no memory of this moment. "Would you like to see the wedding video?" Adrian asked, his tone polite but with an edge of steel. "I have 50 witnesses who attended, including Judge Matthews, who performed the ceremony. Shall I call him?" Helen's hand was shaking now as she looked at more papers in the folder. Vanessa peered over her shoulder, her face going pale. "Mom," she whispered, "these look real." I couldn't stay silent anymore. "I don't understand," I said, my voice breaking. "I've never met you. I would remember getting married. This doesn't make any sense." Adrian turned to me and his expression softened. "I know you're confused, and I know you're scared. But I need you to trust me for just 1 hour. 1 hour, and I'll explain everything. Can you do that?" Helen moved between us. "Absolutely not. This man is clearly running some kind of con. He's after the money. Nora, don't listen to him. We'll call the police, get a lawyer." "Like you got lawyers to keep her locked in this room?" Adrian's voice cut through her protests like a blade. "Like you got papers ready to steal everything her father left her? Tell me, Mrs. Bennett, how long were you planning to keep her prisoner?" Helen's mouth opened and closed. Vanessa looked away, guilt flashing across her face. Adrian looked back at me. "Your choice, Nora. You can stay here with them, or you can come with me. But I promise you, I'm not the enemy here." I looked at Helen's face, red with rage and fear. I looked at the papers still clutched in my hand, papers that would have given her everything. Then I looked at this stranger who claimed to be my husband, who had broken down a door to find me, who was looking at me like I was the most important person in the world. "Okay," I whispered. 1 hour. Adrian's car was like something out of a dream, sleek, expensive, with leather seats that felt like clouds after days of sitting on my bedroom floor. He drove in silence at first, giving me space to process what had just happened. I kept stealing glances at him, trying to figure out who he was, trying to spark any memory. Nothing came. We arrived at a luxury hotel downtown, the kind where rooms cost more per night than most people's monthly rent. He led me to a private suite on the top floor. As soon as the door closed behind us, I turned to him, desperate for answers. "Who are you?" I demanded. "What's going on? Why don't I remember you?" Adrian gestured to the couch. "Please sit." I'll tell you everything, but you need to hear all of it. This is going to sound unbelievable, but I swear to you, it's the truth. I sat, my whole body tense and ready to run if I needed to. Adrian sat across from me, his hands folded, his expression serious. 3 months ago, he began, you came to my office. I'd never met you before that day. You were terrified, desperate. You said you needed help, that your life was in danger, and you needed to disappear. You begged me to marry you. I shook my head. That's impossible. Why would I do that? You never told me the whole story, he said. You said you'd found out something terrible, something that put you in danger. You needed legal protection and marriage was the fastest way. You said once you were someone's wife, they couldn't touch you without consequences. He leaned forward. I had my reasons for agreeing. It was supposed to be a business arrangement. Temporary. We'd stay married for 6 months, then quietly divorce. No one would know. But I don't remember any of this, I said, my voice rising. How could I forget getting married? Adrian's jaw tightened. That's the part I'm still trying to figure out. We got married at the courthouse. It was quick, legal, all the proper documentation. You seemed relieved afterward. You stayed at a hotel under my name for protection. We agreed to meet a week later to discuss the next steps. He paused. But you never showed up for that meeting. You vanished. I've been looking for you for 10 weeks. My mind was spinning. This doesn't make sense. Even if I did all that, why can't I remember? I have a theory, Adrian said carefully, but you're not going to like it. He pulled out his phone and showed me a series of photos. They were surveillance pictures of my house taken from outside. I hired investigators to find you. They tracked you to your father's house. These photos are from the past 2 weeks. I looked at the pictures. They showed me walking in the garden, sitting by the window, always looking sad and lost. Then I saw dates on the photos. Wait, I said. These start from 2 weeks ago. Where was I for the 2.5 months before that? That's what I can't figure out, Adrian said. You disappeared completely. No credit card use, no phone records, nothing. Then suddenly, right after your father's death, you appeared at his house. It's like you were somewhere. Then you were released. He looked at me intently. Nora, do you remember anything from the past 3 months? Anything at all? I tried to think back. My memories were fuzzy. I remembered being with my father before he got sick. I remembered his last days, him being weak and tired. I remembered the funeral. But before that, there was this strange fog in my mind, like trying to see through thick smoke. It's all blurry, I admitted. I remember being sad because Dad was sick. I remember the funeral, but the weeks before that, it's like they're missing. Adrian stood up and started pacing. This is going to sound crazy, but I think Helen did something to you. The investigators found something interesting. He pulled out a folder from his briefcase. Your father's medical records. I had them reviewed by a private physician. Nora, your father didn't die of a heart attack. He was poisoned, slowly, over several months. The room tilted. What? Arsenic, in small doses. It mimics heart failure symptoms. By the time doctors realize what's happening, it's usually too late. His voice was gentle but firm. I think your father was murdered, and I think you found out. Suddenly, fragments started coming back. A memory, hazy and distant, of being in my father's study late at night. Finding something. Papers? Medicine bottles? I couldn't quite grasp it, but there was something there, just out of reach. Helen, I whispered. She was always making his meals. She insisted on it, said it was how she showed love. I think you discovered what she was doing, Adrian continued. I think that's why you came to me for help. You knew if she'd kill your father, she'd come after you too. Marriage to me was protection. I have resources, connections, security. She couldn't make you disappear if you were my wife. But something went wrong, I said, the pieces starting to fit together. She found out somehow. Adrian nodded. I think she caught you. I think she's been drugging you, keeping you confused and compliant. That's why you can't remember. That's why you only showed up after your father died. She needed you to sign those inheritance papers. A wave of nausea hit me. She's been poisoning me? "We need to get you to a hospital," Adrian said immediately. "Get you tested, make sure whatever she gave you is out of your system, then we need to go to the police." "Wait," I said, my mind racing. "If we go to the police now, it's our word against hers. She has the servants on her side. She said they'd testify I was unstable. What if no one believes me?" Adrian was quiet for a moment. "What do you want to do?" I thought about Helen's face, her cruelty, the way she'd slapped me and starved me. I thought about my father, murdered slowly in his own home. Something hard formed in my chest, not quite anger, but determination. I want justice, real justice. I want her exposed for what she did to my father, to me. I want everyone to know the truth. A slow smile spread across Adrian's face. "Then let's give her exactly what she deserves." Over the next 3 days, everything changed. Adrian took me to a private doctor who ran extensive tests. The results were exactly what we feared. Traces of rohypnol, a drug that causes memory loss and confusion, were still in my system. The doctor said I'd been given it regularly for weeks, maybe months. As the drug started to clear from my body, my memories began to return. It happened in pieces at first. I'd be sitting in the hotel room, and suddenly I'd remember walking into my father's study. I'd found his medicine bottles, the ones Helen always handled. I'd taken them to be tested at a private lab because something felt wrong. When the results came back showing arsenic, I'd been terrified. I knew I had to protect myself before confronting her. That's when I'd researched Adrian Cole. He was a billionaire, powerful, with connections everywhere. More importantly, he had a reputation for helping people in impossible situations. I'd gone to his office with a crazy plan, and somehow he'd agreed. I remembered our wedding now, quick and efficient at the courthouse. I remembered the relief I'd felt, knowing I had protection. I'd planned to gather evidence against Helen, to build a case, but she'd been watching me. One night, she'd put something in my drink. After that, everything went dark for weeks. When I'd woken up, my father was dying, and I couldn't remember anything. "She kept me somewhere," I told Adrian as the memories flooded back. "Not at the house. Somewhere else? I can almost see it, a small room, always dark. She kept me drugged just enough to be compliant but not unconscious." Adrian's expression was grim. "The investigators are looking into properties she owns or has access to. We'll find it." "There's more," I said, closing my eyes to focus on the returning memories. "I recorded her. Before she caught me, I'd set up hidden cameras in Dad's room. I wanted proof she was poisoning him. The footage is on a memory card hidden in my old childhood bedroom behind a loose brick in the fireplace." Adrian immediately called his team. Within hours, we had a plan. We couldn't just go to the police. Helen had too many connections, and she'd lawyer up immediately. We needed to expose her publicly, make it impossible for her to deny or escape. "I have a friend who works for the news," Adrian said. "If we give them the story with solid evidence, they'll run it. Once it's public, the police will have to act. She won't be able to bribe or threaten her way out." But first, we needed that memory card. Adrian sent a professional recovery team, people who specialized in retrieving evidence. They went in at night, dressed as maintenance workers. Helen and Vanessa never even knew they were there. By morning, we had the memory card. What was on it was damning. Clear video footage of Helen crushing pills into my father's food. Footage of her smiling at him as he ate, telling him how much she loved him. Footage of her on the phone talking to someone about how much longer until the old fool finally dies. It was horrifying and perfect. We had medical evidence, video evidence, and my testimony. But Adrian suggested one more thing. "A press conference," he said. "We announce our marriage, explain where you've been. We give them the story. Helen will show up. She won't be able to resist trying to discredit us. And when she does, we show the evidence in front of everyone." It was risky. Helen could run before we had a chance. But Adrian was right. She wouldn't run. She was too arrogant, too confident in her control. She'd come thinking she could spin the narrative, paint me as crazy and Adrian as a con artist. She'd never expect us to have proof. We scheduled the press conference for the following day. Adrian's team sent invitations to every major news outlet in the city. They made sure Helen got an invitation too. The message was simple: Billionaire Adrian Cole to address rumors about his marriage to Nora Bennett, daughter of late business mogul. Helen took the bait. She called, furious, demanding we stop this charade. Adrian was calm on the phone. "Come to the conference tomorrow. Bring your lawyers. Let's settle this publicly." That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying everything in my mind: my father's death, the days locked in my room, the missing months of my life. But I also thought about what tomorrow would bring: justice, truth, an end to Helen's lies. The press conference was held in a luxury hotel ballroom. When we arrived, it was already packed with reporters, cameras, and curious onlookers. Adrian had made sure the police were quietly present too, standing in the back, ready to act when needed. I wore a simple white dress. Adrian's choice. "Innocence and truth," he'd said. He stood beside me in a sharp suit, looking every bit the powerful billionaire he was. As we walked in, cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions. Helen arrived exactly on time, dressed impeccably in designer clothes, Vanessa trailing behind her. She looked confident, ready for battle. She even smiled at some of the reporters she recognized. She had no idea what was coming. Adrian stepped up to the microphone first. "Thank you all for coming. I'm here today to address some rumors and clear up confusion about my personal life." He paused, letting the room settle. 3 months ago, I married Nora Bennett in a private ceremony. It was her wish to keep it quiet due to family circumstances. Recently, Nora has been through a traumatic experience, and I feel it's time the truth came out. Helen stood up from her seat in the front row. "This is absurd. That marriage is fake. This man is after my stepdaughter's inheritance." Her voice rang out, confident and indignant. Adrian remained calm. "Mrs. Bennett, please. You'll have your chance to speak. First, let Nora tell her story." I stepped up to the microphone, my heart pounding. This was it. I looked out at all those faces, all those cameras. Then I looked at Helen, and I found my courage. "My name is Nora Bennett. 3 months ago, I discovered that my stepmother was slowly poisoning my father. I had his medication tested and found arsenic. Terrified for my own life, I sought protection by marrying Mr. Cole. Before I could bring evidence to the police, my stepmother drugged me and held me captive for 10 weeks. The room erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed like lightning. Helen's face went from confident to pale. "She's lying! She's been unstable since her father died. She's making this up." "I have proof," I said loudly, and the room quieted. "I have video evidence of my stepmother poisoning my father. I have medical tests showing she drugged me, and I have testimony about how she locked me in my room, starving me, trying to force me to sign over my inheritance." Adrian's team brought out a large screen. "We're going to show you 1 minute of footage," Adrian said. "We've given the full videos to the police, but this should be sufficient." The video played. It showed Helen in my father's room, crushing white pills with the back of a spoon. It showed her mixing the powder into his soup. It showed her feeding it to him, smiling, while he thanked her for taking such good care of him. The timestamp was clear, dated 6 months before his death. The room was dead silent except for Helen's voice on the video. "Just a bit more, darling. You need your strength." When the video stopped, Helen was standing, her face white as paper. "That's edited. It's fake. She made that up with computers." "The original files have been examined by forensic experts," Adrian said. "They're authentic. The police have them now, along with your father's medical records, which show clear signs of arsenic poisoning, along with Nora's medical records, which show she was drugged with Rohypnol over an extended period." Vanessa suddenly stood up, her voice shaking. "I didn't know. Mom, you said you were just helping him sleep. You said his heart was weak. You never told me—" "Shut up!" Helen snapped at her daughter. Then she looked around at all the cameras, all the reporters scribbling frantically. She realized finally that she was trapped. There was no talking her way out of this, no bribing or threatening. The truth was out, and everyone had seen it. Police officers moved forward from the back of the room. "Helen Bennett, you're under arrest for the murder of Gerald Bennett and the kidnapping and assault of Nora Bennett." Helen tried to run, actually ran, pushing past reporters, heading for the door. But officers were already there. They caught her easily, pulling her arms behind her back for handcuffs. She screamed the whole time, insisting she was innocent, that we'd framed her, that this was all a conspiracy. Vanessa collapsed into a chair, crying. "I didn't know," she kept saying. "I swear I didn't know about the poisoning." Later, the police would determine Vanessa really didn't know about the murder. She'd known about Helen's plan to take control of the inheritance, and she'd helped keep me locked up, but she hadn't known her mother was a killer. She'd face charges for what she did know about, but they were lesser crimes. As they led Helen away, still screaming, I felt Adrian's hand on my shoulder. "It's over," he said quietly. "You did it." I watched my stepmother being pushed into a police car, cameras recording every second. The woman who'd killed my father, who'd stolen months of my life, who'd tried to take everything from me, she was finally facing justice, and I felt relief. Pure, overwhelming relief. That was 6 months ago. Helen is in prison awaiting trial. The evidence was overwhelming. Forensic experts confirmed the videos were real, the medical evidence was irrefutable, and once police started digging, they found even more. She'd been planning this for years, slowly poisoning my father, waiting for the perfect moment. Her trial is next month, and her lawyers have already told her to expect life in prison. Vanessa took a plea deal. She's serving 2 years for conspiracy and false imprisonment. She sends me letters sometimes, apologizing. I haven't read them. Maybe someday I will, but not yet. As for me, I took over my father's company. It was terrifying at first, but I had good people around me to help. The company is doing well, and I've even started expanding into sustainable architecture, something my father always wanted to do but never got around to. I think he'd be proud. And Adrian? Well, that's the interesting part. Our marriage was supposed to be temporary, just a legal protection. We were supposed to divorce once everything was settled, but somewhere along the way, something changed. Maybe it was going through this nightmare together. Maybe it was all the long conversations in the hotel, sharing our stories, learning about each other. Or maybe it was just timing. 2 people who needed each other exactly when we did. Last month, Adrian took me to dinner at a fancy restaurant. After dessert, he looked at me with this serious expression. "So," he said, "we've been married for 9 months now. Most of it fake. But these last 6 months have been real, haven't they?" I smiled. "Very real." "Then maybe," he said slowly, "we should make it official. Have a real wedding, with friends and family, or ... quote. He paused. "We could get divorced like we planned and start over? Do this the traditional way? Dating, engagement, all of it." I thought about it. About everything we'd been through. About how he'd broken down a door to save me. About how he'd stood by me through the investigation and the press conference and the aftermath. About how somewhere along the way I'd fallen completely in love with him. "No divorce," I said, "but maybe we could have that real wedding anyway. This time with a white dress and cake and people who actually wish us well." He grinned, and it transformed his whole face. "I'd like that. But first, I think we should go on a proper first date. Do this right." So that's what we did. We went on dates like normal people. We held hands in parks. We argued about movies and laughed at stupid jokes. We built a real relationship on top of the fake one. And you know what? It was perfect. Sometimes I think about that day, standing on the porch with my suitcase, thinking I'd lost everything. I was so broken, so sure my life was over. I never imagined that the man who came to find me would end up being the person I'd been searching for all along. Helen tried to take everything from me, my father, my inheritance, my memories, my future. But in the end, all she did was lead me to something real, something true. She wanted to destroy me, but instead, I found my strength. I found justice, and I found love in the most unexpected place. They say every villain thinks they're the hero of their own story. Helen probably still thinks she did nothing wrong, that she deserved my father's money, that I was the obstacle in her way. But the truth has a funny way of coming out eventually. Lies can only hold up for so long before they crumble. My father used to tell me, "Nora, the strongest foundations are built on truth. Everything else is just sand." He was right. Helen built her life on lies and it all fell apart. I'm building mine on truth, on real relationships, on earned success, and it's standing strong. So that's my story. The day my stepmother screamed at me to get out, and a billionaire showed up claiming I was his wife. It sounds impossible, I know, but sometimes truth really is stranger than fiction. I want to know what you think. If you were in my situation, would you have trusted Adrian? Would you have gone with a stranger, or stayed with the family you knew? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, please give it a thumbs up. Share it with anyone who loves a good plot twist or who needs a reminder that sometimes heroes show up when you least expect them. And make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because I have more stories to tell. Some are mine, some are from people I've met, but all of them are real, and all of them are worth hearing. Remember this: when someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Don't make excuses for cruelty. Don't accept treatment that breaks you down. And know that somewhere out there are people who will break down doors to protect you. You just have to be brave enough to let them in. Thank you for listening to my story. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong, and never let anyone make you feel like you're worth less than everything, because you're not. You're worth fighting for. Take care.